Awesome. Well, thank you very much for the introduction there, Kyle. I'm Jared Wilbur. We're going to be talking about APIs today, and more specifically, the ObservePoint API. Now, we did design this session to ensure that all levels of technical knowledge are welcome and can get something from this. Anyone here can implement what we're going to be talking about today. Now, before we get started, we want to make sure everyone understands the basics of what an API is. We hear this term pretty consistently, probably in most roles, but what really is an API? So an API stands for an application programming interface. Now, it sounds like a really complex term, but most of you have probably heard the term user interface or UI. The I in both of those are the same thing, interfaces. They allow two entities to communicate with each other. Specifically, a user interface allows a user to communicate with a machine, whereas an API allows for a machine to talk to a machine. Simple, pretty simple terms there. The power that you get from that is simple automation, as well extending the ability of the tool that you are using and use every single day. So you get more from that tool. Now, APIs cannot be really talked about unless we talk about webhooks as well. Now, you'll hear that hand in hand pretty consistently. A webhook is kind of the opposite direction of an API. A webhook is an event-based notification from that second system back to the first, that something has happened, something has occurred inside your system. And I want to take a step back, actually. I forgot to mention, when we talk about systems and machines and technology, think about the things you use every single day. Jira, Slack, Teams, all of those are systems. They each can talk to one another, and you leverage APIs to do so, as well as have webhooks to talk to each other. Now, the best example of a webhook that I have ever heard, and I love this example, is road trips. Now, when you're on a road trip, many of you probably have kids. And if you've taken road trips with those kids, you have the fun, infamous question of, are we there yet? Right? So we all heard that term. We all know it. And it's obnoxious. Why is it obnoxious? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Because the kids in the back seat are trying to ask the driver a question, right? They're trying to get information of, has the event of we have arrived occurred? Has that occurred yet? So they are going to ask the driver, are we there yet? 5 minutes later, are we there yet? No. We haven't. The event of we have arrived has not happened. So in technical terms, we call this, that is an example of an API. That's not a webhook, that's an API. A system is asking the other system, has something happened yet? The more efficient way that we could accomplish this, pretty simply, is why doesn't the driver just turn around to the kids safely, pull off to the side of the road, and then say this, but turn around and say, I will just let you know when the event of arrival has happened, right? Now we can all just drive in peace. So, and when we arrive, we can turn to the kids and say, we have arrived. That is a webhook. The opposite direction that the other system is saying, something has happened. Let me know about it. So honestly, cars are an incredible example of this. We've already given kind of a road trip of this, but cars themselves are actually have a lot of great examples for webhooks and APIs. And so for this session, in order to drive it home, okay, I thought that would land a little better. We're going to take a field trip. Thank you. We're going to take a field trip. So we're all actually going to stand up and head back out to the entrance. We have a little treat for everyone here. So if we can all stand up and make our way out to the front here. Let's go check out a API in real life.
All right, it's taking my board seat.
I'm not sure if we're going to be able to still hear. All right. I'm not even sure if I'm just going to take off the mic because I have a loud enough voice. My family likes to remind me every day. All right. I need a call from, yeah. Okay, we now with an immediate.
You have a seat in the car yet. Do we need a passenger? I don't know how to actually open. I would say yes. I don't know how to open the door. It's on. Yeah, we can just jump on it. So real quick, we will have time afterwards. Lunch, if you would like to, so you can have a seat, take pictures and all that kind of stuff afterwards, have lunch. Just the time for the effective there. So ours, as I mentioned, are actually really, really cool if we imagine them as an API and webhook. They have them all around it. Imagine Chris here is one system. Imagine him as your system. Let's say Fira or whatever. And let's say the car here is a third. They need to interact with one another. Chris is trying to get something out of the car. He presses the gas, it will move forward. Sure.
Sure. Yes. I will try to be loud, but not too loud, I guess. All right.
Excellent. All right. Hopefully I don't look like a dork now that I've taken these things off. Excellent. So a car here, Chris is going to be interacting with that car, and it is going to respond to interactions from him, right? We have gas pedals, we have brakes, we have steering wheels, we've got a dashboard. If he is one system, when he presses on the gas, he is expecting that it interacts, that this system is going to interact with him in a specific way. That's that right there is an API. You can give input into it, and it will do something about it. Ultimately, in the back end, it doesn't really matter to Chris what the engine is doing. It doesn't really matter, specific, technical, whatever. There's something with fuel injectors and maybe a carburetor. I'm not a car guy, so I have no idea what happens, but it doesn't matter. He hits the gas, it moves forward. He hits the brake, it slows down, and that's what matters to him. He gives feedback, and it responds accordingly. It also gives information to that system. You have the dashboard. You have, how fast, the RPMs of the car, how fast is the car going. All of that is feedback to the other system from the car to the driver, one system to the next, of how the car is interacting between systems. Now, cars have an excellent webhook in them as well. They have fuel lights, right? You have a low fuel gauge. If the driver is going to drive around, and they're not going to ask constantly, is my fuel low? They can technically look at the fuel gauge, right? But the low fuel light is what I'm talking about here. They're not asking, hey, is the fuel light on? Is the fuel light on? No. When the fuel gets to a certain level, the car knows to respond back to his system that you are low on gas, and you need to respond accordingly. An event has occurred, you are low on gas, it is responding back to this system, your system, you as the driver. So that is very high level of APIs and webhooks, and hopefully we're now all kind of on the same technical level, and that is all you need to know for the rest of the session today. Everything that was implemented with Sam here, we're going to be talking about, was leveraging hooks and APIs, and it was done with little to no code at all, which is very, very, very cool. So back inside, we're going to talk about Sam's case, and I will say this, I guess a little biased, but honestly, one of the coolest implementations I have with ObservePoint, a lot of numbers behind it. And we'll turn the time back over to Sam here.
Good looking. Thanks. Yeah.
Oh. All right, we need Sam's mic on. Are you on? technical difficulties. Sorry.
Hi. Buttons are hard, APIs are not. It's what we've come to learn. What a cool example, right? Thank you, John, for the beautiful car, and thank you, Chris, for sitting in it. Our goal during this session is really to empower each and every one of you to be able to state the impact that ObservePoint has had, or if you're not a customer yet, could have on your business and, more importantly, your customers, in a way that resonates not only with ObservePoint users, but with everyone across your enterprise. I will tell you the two biggest challenges you have when working with ObservePoint is getting it past your executives and your finance team. And today we're going to walk through exactly how to do it and knock out both. So I'm sure you guys heard that this is an API session and you had some preconceived notions about what an API is, how intimidating it can be, and frankly, the fact that it might be very overwhelming. But we promise it's really simple. Just as Jared said, all you need to know is an API sends information to a platform, tell it to do something, right? That's all. Super simple, right? Y'all got this. An example, as you pointed out, could be talking to your project management tool and telling it to create a ticket. It could be talking to your email tool and telling it to send an email on your behalf. Or even simply, it could be creating a new post in Microsoft Teams. You could 100% go do all of that manually. You can go into the tool, log in, do a bunch of manual work, and get the same result. But why would you when you could automate the entire thing and do it in a consistent, reusable, and timely fashion? If you've met me, or if you're going to talk to me later, you will find out I hate manual work more so than anything else. Manual work lowers productivity, it kills staff morale, and frankly, it hurts your bottom line. 2.5 years ago, I started a company called Room and Board. Room and Board is a wonderful company, but I will tell you, day one, the amount of manual work that poor company was doing broke my heart and about drove me through a wall. So from that point on, it became my personal mission to eliminate as much manual work as I could as I ingrained myself into this new company. And honestly, APIs were a huge part of that. They really are the game changer that was required to make all of that happen. In a previous life, when I worked at bigger companies, the solution to using APIs was to write a whole bunch of code. And I love coding, but Room and Board posed a very unique problem that I hadn't quite encountered yet, where they have a very specific web dev team, and then no one else, that entire company, codes. So what do you do with a business intelligence team that should be leveraging APIs and insights and can't write a line of code? Do you sit down and say, okay, we won't be productive for the next 2 years while y'all go back to school? Or you find a way around it and a new solution that works for the resources that you have available and at your disposal that makes that barrier for entry lower than having a coding background or being a data engineer. So we found a way. Our solution was a drag and drop ETL tool. If you are not familiar with the term ETL, just stands for extract, transform, and load. Okay? You extract data from one place, you transform and manipulate it to meet your needs, and then you put it where you need it. That simple. With that, they have so many drag and drop ETL tools now that require minimal to no coding. So if you can identify an email looking envelope means send an email. If you can physically drag and drop onto a canvas, you too can automate and work with APIs. See? Not intimidating at all. We can see this everywhere where you see there is a lightning bolt I think there's 4 total. Those are APIs. That's it. No one's intimidated by a little lightning bolt icon. The really cool part about this is, yes, it does lower the barrier of entry. Yes, it does make being able to do all of these amazing technical things very easy for non-technical users or users without a technical background who are getting into the space. And the only limitation is your imagination and your understanding of what you're trying to accomplish. So we've now onboarded this tool. In this case, it's Alteryx, but there's so many others. If you have Domo, the data visualization platform, they have one built in. If you use Azure for your data storage, they have one too, and that is just the start of the list. Now at Room and Board, we have not only our business intelligence team using this, but our product teams and our marketing teams, which means they are fully empowered to automate processes by themselves, or they don't need our help at all, and they are extremely self-sufficient. So with a solution like this, you really don't have a reason not to use APIs and to automate your manual work. So now that you have a little taste of how easy it is to automate manual work and leverage APIs, I want to showcase some of the ways that Room and Board uses ObservePoint's API to reduce waste, to increase productivity, democratize relevant information, improve customer experience, and my personal favorite, even generate revenue. Who would have thought? So we're going to go through examples of each and, even more importantly, how to quantify them. And the best thing that you need to know is, if you understood Jared's example, if you have at least one person who can dedicate part-time job to this and 0 coding background, you can do this and more. We did do this with a single individual. For context, Room and Board is a privately held modern furniture retailer based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. We focus primarily on providing exceptional customer experiences and U.S. craftsmanship. With that, we are currently sitting at about a... So take all of my examples of return on investment and multiply them by your giant company numbers. Also, we have just shy of 11 employees. So as you can imagine, very lean. That does include all of our showrooms and our delivery drivers. And we have had ObservePoint for just over a year and a half. So all of this was accomplished within that time frame. In terms of this month, I am so excited to announce that we have updated our executive team with our return on investment. So the investment we put in was the platform costs themselves, as well as 178 hours of labor. 178 hours over the course of a year and a half. That's about 4.5 weeks. Read that out? That's not too much to ask. With that initial investment, we've managed to turn that into a projected return on investment of, for those of you without quick math skills, I am not in that bucket, that's about 2% of our top line. Additionally, this wasn't just a revenue play or a money play. It also increased productivity. So we're looking at over 600 of hours of manual labor that has been completely eliminated using this update. So that, and we're going to get into waste reduction because that's one of my favorites. As you can imagine, when we presented these results, which we do present them quarterly, our executives were extremely happy, and it put us in that perfect position that I think everyone's longing for, where they say, what do we do next? How much more money do you want to be able to go expand what you're doing today? I will say that in order to accomplish what we did, we had to acknowledge 2 very big universal truths. One, the most important scorecard you have, I do not care what department you are, is your profit and loss statement. And I think people lose sight of that, especially as you get a little further away. Of everything you do should be trying to tie back to either increasing profits or mitigating your losses. Try not to get distracted by all the other metrics. With that, The other thing that we really had to acknowledge, which a room and board I felt like was very, very easy, was your most important stakeholders are your customers, both new and existing, not your executives. Which, as you can imagine, walking into a room by executives and informing of this fact was very, very fun. And they took it very well, because at the end of the day, your business is there to help your customers. It's there to solve a problem. So really grounding yourselves in these truths were how we were able to effectively prioritize our projects, and it did guide our measurement plan. So when we get a new tool, what do you do? At our company and at the companies I've worked for in the past, your number one goal when you get a new tool is to figure out a way for it to pay for itself, right? The last thing you want is one more cost weighing over your company's head that does not bring any value. So with our brand new ObservePoint tool, we wanted to find a way to get it to pay for itself. And the biggest or easiest way to do this is go find your quick wins. These are high value, low effort initiatives, and prioritize that. If you are new to ObservePoint or if you're established with an ObservePoint, there are lots of quick wins that you can go find to help positively impact your business. Now, Kyle thinks I'm picking on him a little bit, which I do apologize for. I did read a blog recently that said your company should spend 6 to 14% of revenue on marketing. Well, with a budget that big, there's a lot of opportunity, which typically translates to a lot of quick wins. So while this is not going to be 100% focused on marketing throughout the rest of this, I will touch on a marketing example that was very impactful to our business. It was our quickest win. So, did you know that regardless of where your digital ads send someone, you still have to pay for it? That fact sounds obvious, but I will tell you it is so overlooked in every business and so under talked about. Now, when I joined Room and Board, we used our lovely friends at ObservePoint to find that 30% of what we were spending on display, Meta, and Pinterest, just those 3 tools are the only 3 we're talking about, we're taking people to broken landing pages. 30% of your ad spend on those tools. Crazy. So not only were you delivering a terrible, awful user experience that's going to impact you for days to come, but in our case, we were paying up to $14 per click for the privilege to provide that terrible experience. No one was very happy when we found that out. So in our business, getting that 30% down to 0 was the equivalent of increasing our digital ad spend budget by 7%. What marketing department doesn't want an extra 7% added to their budget, right? These are terms, as you guys will notice, that are very relevant to business, right? I'm not saying I'm going to add value. I'm saying I will give you a 7% more value out of your budget without you spending a single penny more. So, as I'm sure you all could feel for, this was met with very mixed emotions, right? What marketing human would not want an additional 7% added to their budget, or in our case, $1.64 billion of value added to their marketing budget without spending any more? On the opposite side, I'm sure all of you can attest, every marketing department does everything that they can to optimize what they're spending, right? That's their big strategy. We will take every dollar, we will treat it with respect and honor, and we will get the most value possible out of it. So the fact that they were not aware of an almost $2 million per issue or per year issue broke some hearts. So with that, though, I will say, I do see some nodding heads, but for those of you who may not be nodding, I wouldn't judge and say this example is not relevant to you, because I can practically guarantee that Jared and I could show up to your company tomorrow and find a heck of a lot of waste. So with that, knowing we're all in the same boat here together where we can all improve, as a result of working with ObservePoint, what we were able to do is see a 99% reduction in ad waste across digital, display, Meta, and Pinterest, eliminating $1.6 million of ad waste in 2023. Our next goal in 2024, in case you're curious, is to take this and expand it into our bigger channels. I do think it's important to know that 1.6 is representing 3 of our smaller channels. We haven't even touched email and search yet. So a lot of opportunity to come. So how do we do it? And more importantly, how can you do it too? In the most simplest terms, it boils down to 6 key steps. Get your links, complete an ObservePoint audit, analyze the results of that audit, action your workforce, democratize your information, and quantify your results. Sounds simple, right? That's going to be our key theme of this. If everything is easily accomplishable by all of you, I'm going to walk you through the steps to do each one of these. So, step 1, get your links. This can be as manual or as automated as you want it to be. I am not here to judge. So, all you have to do is pull together a list of links. You can go on your homepage and copy URLs out. You can go into your ad platforms and have an intern go copy every link. Get a list. Now, the way we do it, which I'm biased towards, is we actually leverage a partner called Blink, who is here today, who manages all of our campaign links in one single place. And the beauty of that is, 1, it makes management very, very easy because we know where everything is. But 2, they have a beautiful API and integration with ObservePoint where we suck those links out and we put them right into our audits. Right? Super exciting. Imagine all of your campaign links in one place, ready to be used. So the biggest piece with this is knowing it's stop here. You've accomplished this task. But I would be remiss to say, we personally take it one step further. So additionally, what we do is we normalize our campaign on every link. If you don't know what a campaign parameter is, on your URLs, you have these little teeny tiny identifiers that tell you where your traffic came from. That's it. Marketers love them. And they're really important that they work for you to be able to quantify value for your marketing efforts. Once we normalize all of those parameters so we're able to test the breadth of all of our possible campaign variations, we deduplicate the list. I will say, from what I've heard, I am a bad use case to miss it. When we deduplicate our list, we're only using a small subset of our links. We have a compression rate of 4. Hold me accountable on how I'm saying that number. It's a new measure for us. Basically, what that means is you take 100% of our links that it could be scanning, right? Say 100. Instead of scanning all 100, I can effectively scan all 100 by only scanning 25. Right? Because ads send people to the same place all the time. You don't need to keep re-scanning the same page over and over again. So again, all you have to do is get your links in whatever fashion works for you. I highly recommend automating the process. I highly recommend figuring out ways to take it a step further to reduce costs and really optimize what you're spending. Because at the end of the day, that's why we're all here, right? So at the end, if you can automate all of this, you're increasing productivity and maximizing your investment both in your campaign spend and with tools like ObservePoint that you're leveraging for testing. Our next step is to complete your audit. This cannot be done or accomplished without our friends at ObservePoint, so thank you to them. What you're going to do, all of this can be done via an API, is you take your list of links, however you got them, and you update your starting URLs. If you're not familiar, it's that giant box right there that tells you all of the places that you want to scan or where you're going to start from. In ObservePoint, if you're less familiar, you do have the ability to start at a URL and then continue scanning and let it crawl your website. In this case, we're talking about campaign links. That's not super necessary. So what we do is we also use ObservePoint's API to dynamically update the number of links we want to scan. So we only scan those links and then stop. You can definitely keep going and see what else is on your website. It all kind of depends on your business use case. From there, ObservePoint even has an API to say, as soon as that's done updating, go start my run. How nice would it be to not have to schedule it in the tool, not have to manually turn it on, and just let it go as soon as it's ready. Once your run starts, you'll let it complete, right? And what's really cool, as Jared alluded to earlier with his fuel example in the car, is that a book can then take off something else. So a trigger that you would have, similar to running out of fuel, would be, hey, my audit completed. Go do something. And in our business case, what I wanted to go do is analyze our results, right? So let's talk about what that looks like. Again, this process for us is 100% automated, and you can do the same thing manually if you want. Big advocate for APIs. That's why we're here today, but you could still get value out of this doing it manually. So in order to analyze your results properly that are coming out of ObservePoint, you got to have a conversation with your partners and answer a couple of, I would say, softball questions, right? So first question, what qualifies as an issue? What is an issue? In ObservePoint, they collect so much data that you could have millions of types of issues by the time you're done, but it's really figuring out what's important to your business. Is it the fact that you have a privacy policy link missing on a page? Is it the fact that your analytics tag isn't picking up the fact that someone placed an order on your website? Or is it as little as a link is redirecting and you don't want to belabor your customer's experience? There's so many options that you can choose, but talk to your partners and figure out what those are, define them, and then prioritize them, which gets into our next piece. Not all issues are created equal, and not all issues are created equal across different enterprises or business segments or even locations, right? So how do you set those priorities for each one of those issues? How do you determine if it's urgent or if it's something that can wait a week, right? Or a month, depending on how big your teams are. For us, a really good example is if we have a campaign link that we're actively spending money on that takes you to a broken page, probably an urgent issue, right? Probably take action soon so we don't waste money on it. Versus our redirecting link example, like wait a little, right? One redirect is not going to make or break a user experience, but in the long run will have bigger impacts. Once you determine the priority and what your issues are, the next thing you're going to do is determine what action gets triggered off of that issue. So if I tell you a privacy link is missing on a page with a campaign link, what are you going to do? Who's going to do it? What information do they need to be able to accomplish what they need to do? And that kind of gets us into the next couple of pieces, right? Of who actually does the work. And it could be multiple teams off of one issue. It's not just a one-size-fits-all kind of solution. And then how do you communicate? Different teams talk differently. We'll go through an example today. I, at Room and Board, have multiple work management tools. So depending on the team that I'm talking to, it's still going into work management tool, but which one? Or some people prefer an email or what have you. So how do you figure out the best way to empower those individuals to go take the actions you want in a way that's not intrusive to what they do? So I believe the biggest differentiating factor that you're going to run into is your ability to action your workforce. It was talked about earlier with the panel of data and insights is great, but if you don't do anything with it, it doesn't matter. So we're going to walk through 3 examples of how we action our workforce at Room and Board. Our first example, we have an issue, right? Our issue is a link within a campaign's ad is directing users to a broken page. Big no-no. In our case, since we're spending money on it and delivering a bad user experience, we mark it as high or urgent, depending on the campaign volume. The action triggered off of that is pause the ad or change the link. Super simple and obvious, right? We got 2 options. So the person responsible for that is going to be the person who owns that link in that campaign. We all know who creates campaigns. And the way that we're going to communicate that in this case is through a project management ticket. This is an actual example of what we send out. It will tell you the priority. If that priority is urgent, we do internally require a justification for why we are asking you to drop everything and do something. It's polite. And with that, it'll tell you your exact request. What do you have to do? Shouldn't have to guess what our expectations are in a ticket that's telling you to do work. And then from there, thank you again, Blink. We're able to incorporate links that direct those users to Blink to be able to update those links. Super easy. It's all right there for them. And in my experience, making it the path to success as easy as possible is the best way to get people to actually do it. Our second example is if, again, we had a privacy policy or if we had a campaign link that was taking users to a page without a privacy policy link. Big liability, right? So, again, urgent. Not only are we opening the doors to liability, but we're actively paying to do so. So, we trigger a couple of actions off of this. First, if you're the campaign owner, you can pause the campaign or update your link to one that has a privacy policy on it. If you're our web development team, you're going to get a ticket in our second project management tool, Jira, which is what they work in, to say, hey, go put a privacy policy link on this page. Those two tasks are not in conjunction with each other. The web dev team still has to do their work to put a privacy policy on there, even if we pause the campaign. The campaign owners are empowered to go do their work. And even more importantly, because we believe in open and honest communication at Room and Board, we do send an email notice to our privacy team. The email notice's purpose is to make them aware of the fact that we have a potential liability and what the scope of that liability is, as well as who to follow up with for remediation purposes. They are very well informed of the fact that we potentially could be sued. And it does help kind of push the envelope of there is accountability in saying, I asked you to do something from a privacy perspective, and I told you it was from a privacy perspective, and our privacy team knows about it and is able to follow up and hold you accountable for that work. The last example, which is as a person who hates manual work, is my personal favorite. This is an issue where a campaign has an unnecessary redirect, or in some cases, 5 or 10. Depends on your business. But I found some unnecessary redirects. And so with this, our priority is medium or low, but we don't notify anyone. We don't tell anyone that we have this issue. You're probably thinking, well, how do they get fixed? Well, thanks to the power of ObservePoint's API and our integration with Blink, we're able to auto fix those. You can take ObservePoint's data, right? We know we had a goal to send people to this URL, right? And we know they eventually end up on this URL. How do we got to make them go through the middle? So all we do is we update our campaigns and our ads that are out in the world to automatically use the final URL instead of the original starting URL. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? No one needed to be involved. It happens every day. It probably happened about 10 minutes ago because that's when our thing's scheduled to run. So once you action your workforce, I think something that's pivotal to getting adoption within your company is democratize your information. Information and insights really is key, and it's very, very powerful. So you can democratize information in a lot of ways, and I highly recommend doing all of them. There are all of the ways that we are doing or plan to do very shortly at our enterprise. First off, that we kind of just talked through with those examples of we're democratizing ObservePoint's data by telling people about issues via email, via team, via our multiple project management tools. We also showcase our results and impact in a data visualization tool, right? Currently in the process of building ours out, but we do keep those results and we do have executive readouts every quarter to give them high-level updates, right? Should have all of this insight in one place. And I will say in the past when I've done dashboards specific to ObservePoint at other companies, it's really important to start combining that data using your ETL tools to be able to put it with other information that makes it more relevant, makes it more contextual. So for example, I have a broken link is one thing. This broken link impacted this many customer experiences is a very different conversation. Us not fixing this issue in this time frame rather than this time frame resulted in us spending this much money to send people to bad locations, which honestly, we would have been better off lighting the money on fire because it wouldn't have negatively impacted our users. Waste all the same. The other thing too is you can incorporate ObservePoint into other tools, right? Your data visualization tool is one example, but the example that I have up here on the left-hand side is we also incorporated it into Blink. That's where our marketers live, right? They don't live in ObservePoint. Maybe one day that is the goal, but right now they do their actual work within Blink. So having their key insights of what they need to know and nothing more right there at their fingertips is huge. They can filter to themselves. They can filter to what's going live, what's about to go live. And they can see key answers. Does it have a privacy policy link? Will my analytics be tracked and will I get credit for it? As soon as you put that one in there and explain to them what it means, they get very excited. The amount of emails I get a day that say, something's broken and I won't get credit for it is impressive. And so having that at their fingertips to empower them to be curious and to see new things and continually add and incorporate additional measures is a really good way to train your staff in a way that makes sense for them. And it's the way that they work. Okay? And the last, and honestly probably my personal favorite, is to educate your company as an entirety. So an example you'll see over here on the right-hand side, which is our Fun Fact Friday. Every Friday, our business intelligence team puts out a Fun Fact Friday, right? The Fun Fact Friday is the equivalent of saying, hey, we did something of interest this week that didn't make it into a final presentation. Let me tell you about it. It could be numbers, it could be insights, or it can be updates about wonderful tools that we have and letting people know what they do and why they care about that tool, such as ObservePoint. And I will say, for context, Fun Fact Friday goes to everyone, including our president and COO, all the way down the chain, and he will read every single one of them because we got him into the habit of seeing them and getting value out of what we were telling him. It makes a very big difference when your COO can tell you what ObservePoint does and why he cares. My personal favorite, my background is in analytics. So I will say manual work analytics. Good. Is quantifying your results. Again, this is one of those things of you can't articulate the value, you're going to run into the problem that a lot of folks seem to have where they say, I know ObservePoint's super beneficial. I know it's great for my company, but I can't tell you in a way that makes your C-suite sit down and listen. Or even more importantly, your finance team who's going to tell you whether or not you get budget for it next year. So we're going to walk through 5 examples that our finance team and our C-suite have found the most impactful. There is a slew of other measures. I'm happy to talk your ear off about all of them. We're going to start with these 5, and it should get you in a really good place. The first is return on investment in FTEs, right? You're putting labor investment into creating these automations, into using APIs, into using the tool itself, right? What do we get back for that? What is the benefit? I don't know about your company, but at Room and Board, our biggest expense in our P&L is staff. We have a lot of measures around defining what staff looks like as an expense against our delivered sales, our revenue, depending on if. So with that, we do this calculation to say how much effort, or in our case, future staff expense that we won't need to hire because of automation. And we showcase that in FTEs. The biggest reason we showcase that in FTEs is salaries are super variable. So to be able to see this over time and quantify it effectively, FTEs is a level that everyone can talk. So I will say this is a pretty easy calculation. What you're going to do is you're going to determine how many hours of labor you automated, right? So what we do in order to figure that out is before we start a project, we sit with the people who currently do it manually today, and we say, all right, do the process. And we sit there with a stopwatch, and we do it multiple times until we get a nice little average of how long it takes them to accomplish this manual task, right? Then we set an automation up to do that task for them. Let me tell you, the googly, happy heart eyes we get over making creative people not have to do manual, tedious work is amazing. It really sets them to their life's purpose and the work that they're passionate about. No one is passionate about data entry. So you take that and then you keep a log of how many times that automation did the task for you. And then you just multiply. You say, here's how long it takes to do it. Here's how many times I did it for you. Here's what I put in. And then you divide it by your yearly hours work. Again, remember we got to get a little funky with our numbers. And so we don't actually calculate this based off of the normal FTE number, which is 2,080 hours. Instead, what we do is we accommodate for our lowest level of vacation time and all of our holidays. We actually take that out to articulate the amount that an FTE actually works and is productive in the office, because it's a more meaningful number for us. So with that, as of our last quarter's update, we were able to say in year one, when we built all of this out, saved 24% of an FTE. A lot of money depending on what that role is. And this only have to create that automation. Hello? There we go. Because you only have to create that automation one time. In year two, you don't have to repeat it. So that factor of the equation actually comes out. You just get added benefit that compounds year and year and year and year. Another one that we talk about is change time and remediation. And I will say this is where your business is going to have the biggest impact, is how quickly ObservePoint can help you get the insights so actually you to do something to fix a problem, right? That's what they're here for, right? They're the big problem solvers. So what we do is we determine, again, for every type of issue today, before ObservePoint, how long does it take us to fix that issue? You can get your timestamps directly from your work management tool. We told you about it at this point. It took you this long to mark it done. What is that time in between, right? And so we do that, again, over the course of a period of time to get an average. Then we say, okay, now that we have ObservePoint, now that we've automated the work of creating a ticket, automated the work of assigning a ticket, prioritizing a ticket, getting it into your queue, what's that new time to remediation? And then just determine what the delta between those two is. With ObservePoint, how much quicker did we get, right? So our time to remediation has been reduced by 27% since we onboarded ObservePoint, which doesn't sound like a lot on paper, but I am about to tell you what that 27% translates to, which gets to be the cool numbers. My favorite, this is my personal first project with ObservePoint and Roomboard together, was ad waste reduction. So again, we're reducing that time to remediation, right? This starts to be like medium high to calculate. All we're doing is we are saying, if we had ObservePoint versus if we didn't, what is that time between those two? And how much money did we spend on clicks or ads during that time period, before and after? What that does is that tells you how much you spent if you wouldn't have onboarded ObservePoint, if you wouldn't have reduced your time to remediation very clearly. And what that equaled for our business was 7% of our digital ad budget, or in numbers terms. Keep in mind, we are a $600 million company. That is a ton of money to us. You can then take this a step further. Again, what we're looking for is that happy green mark between when we could fix the issue with ObservePoint versus when we could fix the issue without ObservePoint. And we're going to calculate our incremental lift to revenue, which is my big favorite number. This is my favorite one to share. With this, again, we're just looking at those clicks that occurred between the time when we could fix it before versus when we can fix it now, right? That time to remediation is so important. Just that teeny tiny little window, that 27% that we made a change on. With that, what we do is our personal attribution model ties every single click to a percentage of our final delivered sales. We do take it all the way back so it matches our P&L. We do not stop at intent to purchase. So with that, we actually know how much money that click ended up driving to our top line. And so we just add up the total of all of those clicks that occurred between their attributed revenue, and we are equaling projected for 2023. That is a 139-time return on investment for ObservePoint, just this piece alone, because we were able to improve our time to remediation. I don't know about you guys, but my executives find this extremely impactful to be able to see this and to be able to have it quantified in a way that they understand when they have to make big business decisions. So if you want to do something similar, and I highly recommend it because in my case, the results are definitely worth it, reach out to Jared or reach out to your CSM and they'll be able to walk you through how to do this and so much more. What we talked about today is just the surface of what we've been able to accomplish at Remember, and I imagine you guys can do so much more. So, turning it back to you, what questions do you have for us?
Yeah, on incremental with the revenue, the last one you mentioned, it also the last two.
Yeah.
Fixed with OV and fixed without OV.
Yeah.
Obviously, you need to have a baseline. You're establishing that against, like, you're using some sort of like average of how long it took to fix it before you had OD in place versus now you had it after.
Bingo. So as long as we have had our project management tool, which is much longer than I have been with the company, which is about 2.5 years, we know how long it's taken them to fix these issues from when the ticket is created and assigned, not just created, but assigned, so someone knows about it, to when the ticket was actually corrected. We took all of that data from multiple years and we figured out what our average was. And we did normalize it as we got closer and more efficient to the date to figure out what that actual time was. Again, we follow that same process now that we have ObservePoint to say, I've assigned that ticket to you. How long did it take before you were able to mark it complete? And that is how we come up with that time frame. Any other questions?
We hope that today's session really... Oh, have another one? I didn't see hands. Sorry, you were in the back.
Thank you, Kyle.
You spoke about feeding back into like a visualization platform. What
Yes.
platform are you currently utilizing?
So in my past life, I used Domo. In my current life, we are a Microsoft shop, so Power BI, but you could do it in any data visualization tool at their heart and soul. They all work the same. Just depends on how current you want your visualizations to look. Great question. What other questions do we have?
The point of today's session was hopefully to also inspire you to think of different things. This is a single use case here with single, I got louder suddenly, but a single use case here. We hope that you go to your own organizations and your teams and think about ways to implement the data that ObservePoint collects and how we can integrate in with your current processes. Again, the point of an API, the way that this works was for automation and to extend functionality to your current tools, ObservePoint being one of them, and whatever other tools that you currently work with your teams. So be thinking of that. That's why we did put my email up here. I'd love to discuss those ideas with you. I would love to sit down and say, this is what this would take. We can even bring in, Sam's own solution and pieces of it. Mm-hmm. This interests you, or if it's something similar or something completely out of the blue, please, we want to discuss that with you. How can we implement something unique to your organization to increase value for you?
Yes.
When you're setting these up in ObservePoint, are you using the API to create the reports that you're pulling out, or are you creating them in ObservePoint and using the API to pull it?
Are you trying to figure out how we're getting the data out that we're using?
The creation of the actual report.
At the end of like how I get my big fat numbers?
The creation in Observe.
Okay.
Are you using the API to automate the actual creation of the report of the audits and journeys?
Yes.
Okay.
Bingo. Yes, sorry, I took a second to get there.
And is the click and drag ETL tool part of that, or is that the coding piece that you guys are?
So the click ETL tool, the drag and drop ETL tool, whichever brand you decide to go with, if you choose that solution, or if you have a bunch of really smart people, you can code the whole thing. That is not actually integrated with ObservePoint, but it can talk to an ObservePoint through APIs. So if we sneak back to
Way back.
Oh my gosh.
sorry about that. Oh, apparently a lot of slides. So cute. There we go. Okay, so with this, every tool being just the cute little icon you see, does something, right? The email little icon very closely in sends an email. This is actually the exact process we use to say, I found a broken campaign link, like the entirety of it, to notify not only our privacy team via email, but also both of our teams via our campaign managers via our work management tool, Monday.com. So this is that entire process. Every time you see a little lightning bolt is when we are dealing with APIs. The first API, second, third, fourth, so there's 4 total. And so you'd be able to do that with any ObservePoint endpoint, and even some that aren't listed in their documentation.
That's half the beauty of APIs, that even if something doesn't exist as a direct integration with a tool, you can leverage an API to still accomplish that task, even if there isn't a direct integration for this. There obviously no OP symbol on here. You can still use ObservePoint in that tool via an API.
Yes. Anything you can do in the actual ObservePoint tool and more you can do in the API.
Well, we are out of time here. Oh, we have one more question.
Yep.
So I know you guys use Blink to have all of your marketing campaigns in one place. Let's just hypothetically, you don't have that in your company. How would you go about maybe finding some of those URLs that are pointing to your...
Love it, because we didn't have Blink all too long ago. Blink actually came in very recently to our company, which is very exciting. With that, every platform you currently use, right? Facebook, Meta, or the entire Meta ecosystem, Pinterest, etc., they all have APIs where you can actually extract all of those links and the data associated to it. That is actually our plan to do Google search through that method. Yes.
Awesome. Well, we are out of time. We appreciate you guys coming to our session. We do have a little souvenir for everyone that hopefully will help you to remember the concept of API, ObservePoint, and this whole entire conference here. So we're going to be distributing out little cars, little yellow cars for you. So as you go along, put it on your desk, and you can always remember this concept of APIs and with the power behind them and the power behind ObservePoint's API. So we'll distribute these out for anyone who attended this session, and hopefully we have enough. Man, we were directing a lot of traffic over to this session. We're very grateful. Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you.